Hello, this is Stuart Roberts, founder of Haircuts for Homeless, and welcome to the Hear Me, See Me podcast. I'm going to be talking to people who are truly inspirational to me. Some you may have heard of, and some you haven't, but you really need to hear their story. Hello, this is Stuart from Hear Me, See Me podcast. Today I've got a wonderful person with me, Catherine Flay. She's the CEO of Restart Lives, and it's a particular charity that one of the many that Haircuts for Homeless attends and partners with, but got a real soft spot for this place. We go there on a Friday night. We'll talk about it more later, but it's one of those that's really odd because we get out of the station, we walk past Harrods and all these wonderful places, and then we arrive at a church and we go downstairs. And there's like a queue of like 100 people who are just coming to get something to eat and some companionship, you know, and the disparity of the sort of class and that of everything, it really hits you hard on that one. So today I'm talking to Catherine. How are you, my dear?
I'm good, thanks. Thank you so much for having me. And that was like a nice summary of the drop-in, and one of the reasons that it feels so important to us is just operating in that area where there's so much wealth, but there's a lot of homelessness in that area as well, isn't there? So it's like, it seems like quite a counterintuitive place to have a drop-in, but it's actually so important because so many people sleep rough in kind of west central London. So great to be here, Stu. Thank you so much.
I mean, yeah, and I do say that. I say that to many people when I travel all around the UK and Ireland, and it is one of them that stands out purely by the sort of the different scale of it, you know.
It's Porsches parked outside. And,
yeah. When we go past Harrods, they're walking out with bags that probably feed us the whole lot for that night.
I know, it's unbelievable.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, people work hard, they deserve nice things. That's fine. I always try and not make people feel guilty about it succeeding. But it just feels a bit odd on that one. I'm not sort of making any judgment.
I know. I know what you mean.
Strange, you know.
Yeah, can be. I mean, a lot of people from around there do support us, to be fair to them. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't moan too much.
A little bit.
Yeah, sometimes. Well, look, so people know you. We'll talk a bit later about the about Restart Lives, but some people know you. Where were you brought up? What was your upbringing like?
So my upbringing was a little bit chaotic, you would say. I was born in Finland, so I wasn't born in the UK, but my dad's British, my mum's Swiss, and he was over there for work. And it was like, you know, we were one of those families. I was born in the 80s, like at the end of the 80s. And I think like lots of families in the 80s, it was like a time when people were really struggling to find work, like lots of industries massively disrupted by, you know, government policies, cultural change, social change. And my family was like that. You know, my dad's career was like massively disrupted. And my mum had already had an upbringing that was a little bit disrupted as well. So like not got where she should have done with education. You know, leaving school early as well. So like the way her career was going, you know, it like not as many opportunities at that time. So they were really struggling with everything that goes with that. So the financial side of that, the emotional side of that. We would travel around like different cities, different countries, trying to, you know, with my dad trying to build up a career and everything. And that was like really tricky at the time. So we experienced some of the stuff that some of our guests experienced. Like you know, for example, my parents never bought a home. Like lots of people have that experience of, you know, struggling with a mortgage. We didn't even get to that point. We would stay with people or stay in, you know, short-term accommodation, stuff like that. Always, you know, months of the year, stay with one grandparent or the other or family member. So that was kind of like my upbringing for a long time. And then I think I was one of those people, again, like lots of people with that type of background will probably relate to this, where like education just became massively important for me. I got the opportunity to go to a really good primary school. And I was starting school like a lot later than kids in the UK start school because it's different in some of the countries I was at. So I like at first I was a little bit behind and a little bit shocked by by being in that environment. But then like I just really took to it and I loved education and I realized I was quite good at it. And I just like progressed through, and I went to grammar school, and I ended up going to Cambridge University, which was obviously like an amazing opportunity, and going on to do a PhD. So I was like massively supported by my family, but also like having a like huge life-changing opportunity of education, basically. And then I just kind of like went on in a career that might be expected after that. And I didn't really reflect back on my upbringing like in the light that I'm presenting it in now. And I think, again, that's really common. Like my parents didn't either. Like once you're doing a little bit better and things become a bit more stable, you don't necessarily want to reflect back all the time on like what was tough or what you went through, or you don't want to conceptualize it in that way. So it wasn't until like later on when maybe I started having conversations with my parents about it, or like just thinking myself, or maybe even like having some type of, therapy and having conversations about it, that I realized like, oh, that's probably had quite a big effect. And that is what kind of like brought me back round to thinking about, the issues of homelessness, the issues of precarious low wages, the issues of work instability, the issues of mental health that can compound all of that. Just, all the tension that puts on a family. So that kind of like was a sort of personal journey that I went on. And then I ended up changing my career and coming to work in homelessness in the charity sector. So that's kind of like the long and short of my upbringing, and even how I kind of got to where I am now.
Fascinating. It always fascinates me because generally it always ends up being something like this. Because everyone who works in the sector we're in, there's that why. Everyone's got that why. And it's important. This is why I do on the podcast, because I think we need to know someone's why, and that's why it sounds a bit cliched. Oh, where was you born? What was you up doing?
Yeah.
But it always really gets a real sense of purpose behind it. So just before you went over to this sector, where was you working? Not like particularly the place itself, but what sector was you in at that point?
So I worked for a little while in academia. So I taught at Birkbeck at London University, and I taught at Cambridge University for a little bit. And I was teaching like literature, politics, culture. And like, education has a massive social impact too. I did enjoy, especially working at Birkbeck, where a lot of people are in education, not from a direct route. Again, like there's not necessarily as much privilege that goes with it. Like I really enjoyed the social impact of that. And, Cambridge, if you're intelligent and you like learning, like you do meet incredibly intelligent people there, and you've got so much access that was brilliant. But, academia is quite its own little world, like its own bubble. If you're really passionate about making a change in the world or being part of like policy, politics, social impact, you may not stay in academia. So that's what I ended up doing. And then I was working at an institute, which was again around like getting access to big ideas, like making philosophy or making, like the more complex ideas behind policies that affect everybody, or the more complex ideas behind the news, accessible to more people, like running events or running festivals or online resources and things like that. So I ended up, senior at that company, kind of running that company under the guy who founded it.
Yeah.
And I was there for 5 years. But then, that was all kind of leading me back to, I guess, the cause that I'm most passionate about.
Yeah. And it's what made you take that final jump?
I think it was like very much part of like a personal journey, if you want to call it that I was on, like I say, reflecting on my own upbringing and like what had actually caused, maybe some of the difficulties that I found myself experiencing, like although I was doing really well, in a way in life, like, thinking, oh, like, why does it seem like my peers don't get affected by this or that, and I feel like I do. So kind of like delving a little bit deeper into kind of like recognizing what it was that was affecting me and my own journey and my own relationship with, you know, all of the things that I described, basically, that made me think, God, so, you know, I could share that insight, or I could, you know, other people could benefit from my sort of empathy and understanding, but also the kind of business know-how that I've got now, and the sort of leadership skills that maybe I've got now, and the education that I've got now. I'd like to give it back, and hopefully other people could have, you know, success stories as well.
I think I think that it's not. I'm not flattering. I don't really flatter too much, but I think they're lucky to have you, because
that's nice.
You know, as a CEO of a charity that I really understand, because I've worked alongside it for a long time, that someone like you is crucial as a CEO of having lived experience, also the sort of academic knowledge you've got that you can bring to it, and then the business the business side. Shame I'm not well educated. I could have said this a lot better, but you know what I mean. It's like you've got all of those things that you know, if I sort of jumbled them up, you make the perfect role as the CEO for that particular charity.
Yeah, that's so nice of you to say. And actually, like, there are, you know, everybody who has like any type of lived experience, there's always gaps in it. So like, having said that I've grown up around like some of those issues, I obviously haven't been, you know, a 40-year-old male white rough sleeper. So I don't have the perfect, you know, no one's got every type of story, do they? So it's just kind of having that empathy and awareness that I think you get when you've been around it, that I do think helps. But I think like, what I was really keen to do when I started was like bring my skills that I feel like I've got, and bring my experience that I feel like I've got, but also be like totally open to hearing, you know, the everybody who's been involved in a charity, because the charity's been running quite a long time, not in the most like organized way, and you know, sometimes with loads of services, sometimes with not that many. You'll know because you've been working alongside it. So there were just so many people who'd like stuck it out through thick and thin with the charity. So I did feel like I had a lot to offer, but I also, the culture here is just so positive, kind of loyal. There's so much built-in knowledge that I was just like really lucky to be able to learn from, basically.
Well, the thing is, traveling around and working alongside so many different types of charities, we get a different feeling about a lot of the ones we come across. And there's ones we really like to work with. Restart one of those, and there's many more, you know, there's In Hope in Bristol. There's lots of different ones. The new one in Watford. They were really great to work with. And I didn't actually know I was going to speak about this, but it's brought me onto it. It's quite an interesting subject about money. Now, I'm not going to ask you anything about, you know, I won't. I'll be delicate about it. But the thing is, it does come up a lot in conversations with big charities, and I'll be straight. We've been really used by some of the very big charities.
Really?
Yeah. And you know, you get to a point where you keep getting emails of a certain charity saying, "Can you come here? Can you come there? Can you?" I mean, they all begin with that sort of, we haven't got any funds, but can we? You know, here, there, and everywhere. And we struggle. We struggle a lot in getting funds in such a small charity like that. It's really tough. And then, so sometimes when you keep seeing this, and it's made me look, and let's maybe look at some of the two in particular that we try not to work with now. And when you have had like 16, 20 million in the previous year, when you see that the CEO is on nearly £200,000 a year, you know, when the board are on £1 million between them, and then they say that they've got no funds, you know, I'm loath to ask my volunteers to go and volunteer their time free of charge. Easily enough money to hire a freelance hairdresser to come along, you know, like, and it's but then, you know, when I sometimes speak to people, and I've got friends in the business world, and I say, well, they're working for a charity, why do they need to earn all that? But they say, well, they might be able to earn 300,000 in a different charity. So they're only, it depends.
Yeah, it is all relative. Yeah.
Yeah, it is relative. And so I take it that, I take the point that sometimes if someone's that qualified, and you've just sat and explained everything about what you bring to that role, and I would think that, whatever it is, and I'm not, whatever it is, it's you earn it, you know what I mean? But when there is some, and and I've been to some of these places, and it's not authentic as Restart is. It's not as authentic as In Hope in Bristol. They're not. It's very corporate, and I'm sure they do a lot of good, but excuse me. It just sometimes it rubs me up the wrong way a little bit.
I totally get that. I mean, you'll know we're a tiny little charity, really, compared to some others. We're growing at the minute, and that does mean taking on more paid staff, which is great because we want to have those skills in house, and we want to put the funds behind paying for them.
Yeah.
But you do sometimes see charities operating with huge budgets, and the way they work with volunteers, it can be a bit sketchy with work with versus use volunteers. It's a tricky one. I don't know about that because obviously I don't. But our budget isn't like that. And who knows what I'd be like if I had a budget of that size. Maybe it's hard to delegate the funds, or maybe it's a sort of corporate strategy coming into the charity sector. I don't know, but. Yeah, we definitely we rely on people like you who have their own organisation and are willing to kind of lend their time to us, give their time to our guests. So yeah, it's a good kind of working relationship we have with most of our volunteers, I would say.
Yeah, it comes across as well. I mean, it's like we gladly partner with all of it. We can't do it without it, because if we can't partner with a centre that's already caring for guests. We are a bolt-on. We sort of add on to that. We're a cooker. We come along and add on. We've got the funds or the facilities to set up any premises anywhere. But it's what makes us very economical, because we haven't got the big outlay. And
would you really benefit from having that? I feel like some of what guests get, obviously they get the haircut and they get like the enjoyment on that day, the positive boost for their confidence, the chat with you, the chat with your other barbers, hairdressers who you bring along, but it's also like they look forward to it. It's genuinely something that people, if they're meeting their basic needs. I hear what you're saying, that obviously if people are really like at a low point where and they're not getting supported by an organisation, it wouldn't be the same. But when they're having casework, when they're part of programs, when they're coming to the drop-in and feeling like sort of cared for in that space anyway, they're always asking when's the next time haircuts coming in, and it's a boost for them to even think about it and plan it into their diary. Sometimes I think it's in a way, if you had your own space and you weren't coming out into the various communities, it'd probably be quite different.
Yeah, and that's to be honest, you've hit the nail on the head, and this is why. I mean, we've been turned down for the last 3 years from the National Lottery for the reaching community.
It's amazing what they turn down, sometimes,
especially since I was on the bloody advert. So I was on the National Lottery advert, you know what I mean? And you think so trust me,
really?
People think it gave me an automatic in with the lottery, but you're still going to get turned down. But I do understand.
It's strange,
with the guy, I said, look, I've got to have a meeting, and we had a Zoom, and he explained it, and he said, well, you're sort of too small for this big institution, grant, but you're too big for the small. I said, well, you need a medium one, don't you?
You need to be.
And he said, well, we may be working on that. And I thought, well, we'll see. But
we'll see, yeah.
And he said to me as well, like, he said, I think if you started to fill all the criteria of reaching the big community stage, you'd lose the authenticity of what you are and what you do, because then you'd be a bit tired, whereas we have got a lot of freedom about where we go and.
Yeah, I think like that's something that I love about Restart and the size of it. We are growing, so we supported more people last year than we have done before. We've got 2 new caseworkers, we've got a program exec on board as well, so we've got more staff and we're doing more. But I don't want us to grow, necessarily beyond that point where we can be really flexible. Because I see it with you as well. Like we've had guests who've actually wanted to get into hairdressing, or becoming barbers, and you kind of, because you're not a really big, really bureaucratic organization, you're there on the ground and they can have a chat with you, and you don't mind exchanging your business details with them, and give them a bit of a way in. It's not part of some like specific program you're doing, and you don't have to run it past a million people. You're able to be quite agile with, offering extra things here and there that make sense when you're on the ground doing your service. I think we're the same, and that's like a massive sort of advantage that you have when you're kind of the size of a smaller or medium organization.
Yeah, I think we would like to grow some though, purely to the fact that everything's done by me and my sister. So bonus, and I think we're a victim if we look too good, because we sort of look like a big charity, and they say, "Oh, can we speak to your marketing department?" And I say, "Yeah, yes, that's me." And,
it's also us.
It's everything. Yeah. So
I do know what you mean.
People on to do some of these roles, so we will get there.
Yeah, and I think like that's definitely like something that I looked to do when I came into this role, because I was like, let's take the best of Restart and what it's doing now. Like, it's very, personal. People who know Restart love Restart. It's a very like personal and genuine relationship that the charity has with the people it supports, the community around it, the volunteers, etc. Let's keep all of that and the agility and the flexibility. But let's just put the right systems in place in the background so we're collecting data. I mean, that's been a massive thing for us, as well as, up in the services, just kind of slightly moving towards that more kind of slick back end operation of the charity. Because then, it's all, we need that really to know what impact are our interventions having. And I mean, I'm doing the reporting at the minute, and it's just so interesting to actually learn.
Yeah.
It's not always, when you're there on the ground dealing with it case by case, the patterns aren't always evident. And if you don't have the data, you also can't do any of that influencing work. Like, we can share what we found with the local MPs where we operate, or with, local councils as well. Or I joined in the Homeless Link parliamentary lobbying day the other day, and you can kind of join things like that with a bit more authority, because we know the issues that are bad. We know kind of at an anecdotal or like personal level what's going on for the people who we support and who we chat to, but that doesn't work when you're speaking to funders that well. Like, case studies do, but you need to build them into that. But what funders really want and what makes a difference at the heart of power is, the data on it, like how many people are experiencing what and what actually works. And so that's been something we've focused on massively, which I hope is making a difference.
Yeah, I mean, I know the power of that. I mean, one of our sort of head trustee is Millie Kendall, OBE, who runs British Beauty Council, and she's an amazing woman. That's what they've done with the British Beauty Council. They've got the stats, they've got the data, enough to take it to government. And
exactly.
So I've seen the power of it, and it's just a bit like chicken and egg with us. We haven't got the infrastructure in place to get all of that, but we need to somehow do it. We're 10 years this year, and I think we've done well to keep going for 10 years, and we've done well to.
That's amazing.
Get back to where we dipped from during the pandemic. Get back there. But I think the target for the next 10 years is to just grow enough, and as you've said, just want to grow enough so that we can start collating all that data, have 3 or 4 people, paid employees, to do the stuff that me and Belinda, because we end up feeling that we're letting everyone down. I
know that feeling,
You know that feeling when you think, oh, we're letting down because I'm not doing well enough on my social media, and I'm not. Everyone's watching these senders. I'm on my Instagram doing but you can't go on and grow like that. You need someone of each slot to do that.
Yeah, it's really hard as well. Like I was saying, we get amazing support from the community around us in Knightsbridge. So we're over in Knightsbridge. We're also in Tower Hamlets and Hackney, but like the big drop in is over there in West Central, and that community is incredibly generous to us. But they're used to being treated like VIPs, and they are VIPs, and they are VIPs to us as well. But, carving out that time to thank people enough and make them feel appreciated is so difficult when it's like that is competing with, someone about to be evicted, and we're all hands on deck with that because we are a small team. So, yeah, I know that feeling of like thinking, am I letting someone down here? And balancing everybody who's important is like, it's so many plates spinning. It's one of the hardest things, probably.
Yeah, because
it is, isn't it?
I get this anxiety as well as if you have taken people for granted. I don't like to be taken for granted, and
I know
sometimes that people have helped us, and I think, I haven't got back to that person. I haven't, and you just constantly in a state of anxiety of not.
It is, isn't it? Enough. And then sometimes you think like, gosh, they probably think they weren't important, but actually they were so important because they made that donation at a key time, and we actually just ran with it straight away and did something impactful. But we couldn't tell them that, we didn't take the time to chat about that or take them out for a coffee or, so like we would like to do, those are the things I think where if you're a larger organization, you can be so much like slicker, can't you, with your comms and with your relationship management and everything like that. And we're just a little bit like, here's a card to say thank you. I hope that's enough. It's not a bottle of champagne or whatever. Yeah.
I don't even answer the text, So,
sometimes exactly.
Moment,
like, oh my God.
Anyone watching, if you've helped us and I'm not thanking
you, please. We are
grateful. I'm like a goldfish. As I come round the bowl again, it's all gone and I've forgot, constantly.
It can be quite overwhelming though. Yeah. Like, do you and your team, because it's a funny one for you because you're working like you and your team.
Yeah, me and
you too, but also your volunteers as well, because they are so part of your team, aren't they, when they come out and about?
Of course.
Do you find that, like, do you actually experience like the same, obviously there's like the business side stresses and strains of it, but do you experience that kind of emotional kind of drain from working on the front line? Like, do you hear things that can be quite, like, they stay with you, you're lying in bed at night thinking like, God, I'm worried about that person? And
of course, and we're very conscious of the fact that our team leaders carry a great burden. So leaders all around the country, like the two girls have just set up in Watford, it's such a hands-on personal experience with, particularly with the way we do it. We're in someone's space, we're in personal space, and I don't know if it's energy or something, but you do take, I don't know. But
you do. I know what you mean.
Yeah, you sort of take it all in. At one point, we did provide. We had a little bit of funding there, and we provided one of our team members with therapy. It's but we constantly. The wonderful thing about WhatsApp, we've got WhatsApps for every team.
Yeah.
The Dublin one is hilarious and filthy, I must say, but it's funny as anything. And they're also different, like around the country with these WhatsApps. But that's why you can never get me on the phone because I have to have it on silent because it'd be pinging on all these WhatsApps.
Oh my gosh, I'm the same. Yeah, I feel you.
That we can keep in contact with all of these projects, the team leaders, and then the team leaders sometimes private message me and Belinda with something that they don't want to share with the whole group and worry them. In fact, straight away, I'm thinking I was supposed to ring one of them last night, and I didn't get round.
Oh no! Don't you get stressed now?
I'll ring them after. So it's. I mean, we've done it. You've woken up in the middle of the night, and you've got enough to worry about your family, but you are worrying about someone who you've come across, and you get really close to people. There's homeless people that I have been known now for 10 years, for nearly the whole 10 years. The early projects, I'm still, and unfortunately, they're still in that position. I think Dwayne Ilford that I know straight away, and but we've got to know a lot of your guests, as well.
Yeah, you do.
We walk in, And and it's like your regulars if you had a barber shop,
It is 100%, and especially on your weeks, it's the same people who turn up early to be front of the queue because they wanna get their hair cut. That you do definitely have regulars, yeah. Or even because we support people once they've moved on from homelessness to like sustain the positive changes. So some of the people, it's not too bad if you still see them at our drop-in because maybe they are in housing, maybe they're taking those steps. But I do know what you mean as well. Like we've got, I think it was last year we hit our 1,000 guests at the drop-in, and now we've got quite a few over that. But some of the people from those early numbers, because we have like a register and people sign in and they've got their special Restart membership number. Some of those really early numbers, 1s, 2s, 3s, they're still coming.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely testament to the fact that it can be really like ongoing for people. Or we see a lot of people, we think when we don't see them then for a few months, we think, I wonder if they're doing better or if they're doing worse.
Yeah.
Because you do get to know people, but not everybody we don't do casework with everybody.
Yeah.
We don't have, we see them when they want to turn up and share something with us, but we don't have their contact details. We don't have a reason to be in touch with them. So we can't even ask sometimes if we don't see someone, we just have to accept it. And that can be quite stressful, I think, as well. Yeah. Wondering, I hope the best, but it could be worse than that.
There's a guy there who was there. I won't say him or describe him, but there was a guy who was there Friday who we haven't seen for a couple of visits.
I know. I think
I'd asked some of the others and say, "Is it all right?"
Yeah.
Something, and he was this more subdued self this time. But it was lovely to see him. And then, because you do think the worst, and we have lost people. We've lost so many people.
I know.
It's the mortality rate of street homeless. We went to we've done this sleep out in Manchester, and there was an artist there, and they'd researched it, and it takes 36 years off a female's life.
Yeah.
Which is, it's incredible to me because it meant like, to just bring it to, if you're going to live to your 80, you're going at 44.
And I think that is the average age, isn't it? In your 40s, early 50s to pass away if you're rough sleeping, if you're homeless. That's the age.
Long-term rough sleeping, and so it's purely. It just brings it wears you down,
Well, even if it wasn't for like the physical side of it, just the emotional side, like we've got this partnership with Minds, the mental health charity.
Yes.
So we're trying to do like stuff for our team, including like support around well-being, but also like massive upskilling training and mental health support and just like being trauma informed in everything we do. But part of their and we're doing the one-to-one therapy for our guests as well. But part of the training was just learning about certain experiences or like an index of trauma. And if you've experienced, say, I can't actually remember what the number was, but say it was like people who experience, 3 or more of these things out of 10 as a child have a life expectancy, considerably shorter than an average person's life expectancy. So even just the mental health side of it, it's huge. And I was really reflecting on that over kind of Christmas time because did you know we did our big sleep out December the 1st because you were there doing haircuts that night, I think, and then we stayed on, and it was our sleep out event. Yeah,
I shot straight off. I'm nice, but I'm not that nice.
No, you are. To be fair, like it is not for people like you to make that extra commitment, but. It was crazy that night. It was -4. Like we haven't had such a cold night since it's coldest night. So, that was our big fundraising, awareness raising event. Yeah. Lots of staff, a few trustees, supporters from the community sleeping out and raising money for us as well. But I was just really reflecting on, it was so cold. It was so uncomfortable. I felt we had security guards and a road closed. It still felt vulnerable. People who didn't know we were doing an event just saw a load of sleeping bags in the street. Some of them were being abusive, critical.
Yeah.
Some of them, you could just hear their comments, even if they weren't addressing it to us. you felt vulnerable, you felt under threat, and it wasn't even anything like the real condition. And that's just like, we experienced the physical side of it. We knew we were going home for a hot shower. We knew we were having a nice breakfast inside. We knew we had this community. We were doing it for a good reason. We felt good about it. But if you were going through that physical side of it, night after night, plus the mental, it's absolutely unthinkable.
Yeah.
I think people lose sight of that. There was all that stuff in the news, Suella Braverman saying, "Oh, it's a lifestyle choice." Honestly,
bless her cotton socks.
When you hear things like that, I think I try to be a respectful person. So I'm like, okay, that's a politician. They're in authority. Let me try to take at face value what they've said. So I was testing it on myself. I was like, is there any situation in which I would make that lifestyle choice? Is there a situation in which I would like to give up a home, warm or not, with heating bills, even with the heating off, it's a home, my stuff, because you can't carry much around. So even if you don't have much, you'd be given, no, there's no way. I'm never, ever making that lifestyle choice. I'd have to be forced to. And I'd try to ask other people, like friends, family, guys, is there anyone, that relates to this comment that would make that choice? I didn't find a single person. I just don't know. Did anyone was there this massive support for that? People being like, oh yeah, I made that choice. I didn't hear anybody, no one would, and no one said they had made that. It was odd.
You're a lot nicer than me, because I didn't justification. I just went straight in and called or whatever I did. But it's true. You should look at it and you should think, what is the reasoning? But then you were always going to come up negative on that one, because it was such such
out of touch
statement. And what my sort of thing, because you get a lot of people, so many judgmental people, and so many are they all deserving and this, that, and the other, and what I always say to them is like, would you swap? That's my straightforward thing. I've got it in my mind. Anyone starts saying anything, I go, well, would you swap? And I don't say it aggressively. I just say, oh, would you swap? And see him stop in their tracks, because he's probably not even homeless. He's begging on the street, and he probably earns a lot of money. But would you sit there for 6 hours on? Do
you want to then? Yeah, exactly.
And it generally it makes people. It just stops them thinking. That I've said this so many times in the podcast on lots of other things, but it moved me so much. Was brother Kevin, who used to run, he's retired now, bless him. He used to run the Capuchin Centre in Dublin, and he said to me that they serve up to 800 people a day.
Oh.
No, it's I'm hoping to go back at the end of this year. And he said that a lady come up in a car, kids in the car, and she come over to get some food and stuff. And he said, he thought, well, why do you need it? So he stopped her on the way out, and he said to her, can I just ask you, if you've got a car and everything, why do you need to come and use us? And she said, well, and she was really apologetic. I'm really sorry, brother Kevin, but the last time my husband beat me, he beat me so bad I thought I was going to die. So I just put the kids in the car, and we are now living in the car.
Straight away. Crazy, the story. You can't judge.
Yeah, and he said, never judge at that point. And
we have the same. Like, we've had guests who are, they sound really well to do. They look quite good. They're sleeping in their car. It's and they're trying to keep up the facade that their life is okay. Maybe they even still have their job. It can be a sudden thing that someone loses their home. They don't lose all their stuff necessarily overnight. And people will try to present. Some people end up presenting in a stereotypical homeless way, but what every person on the average person will imagine a homeless person may look like. Some people do present like that, but some people are trying so hard not to appear homeless.
Yeah, I know.
Even like I said, we've collected quite good data this year, and it was like, for example, we did casework with 136 people 1-to-1, and of those, 30% were actually like the rough sleepers. They were rough sleeping. Other people might be hotels, hostels, whatever. But even then, when we're trying to help people, when we are an organisation for homelessness, an understanding place, a safe space, we reckon that's an underestimation because people might not want to say. Yeah. So even to us, who exist to help people who are homeless, probably like the most understanding type of organisation a homeless person could approach, there will be underreporting in how severe someone's situation is because people don't want to admit how bad it's got. So yeah, that's like such a good example, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And you know, the pride that people do take in themselves, and this comes back to when we work. We sometimes, you know, I'm quite taken aback by people's, you know, willingness to sort of keep going and keep trying to be the best of themselves. You know,
I completely agree.
I can do it. You know, I mean, next month, thank God, I'm 18 years sober. But I often, and they're not, but this is where I have my relationship with, this is my niche with people that I really get when they're struggling. And I often have good chats with people when we're doing their hair about sort of drink and drugs and things. And I've got a good understanding. But sometimes they tell me their story and I think, oh, my God, no wonder you drink. You know,
yeah, of course.
I know it makes things worse, but you no wonder. And sometimes,
I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? Like, that was another thing that's been so helpful, like for me, on the mind training, because one of the things that's really noticeable is that people don't seem to always be acting in their best interest. Like, why would that person, once you're already in this situation, why would you start drinking, for example? That's not how humans work. We don't like go around like robots, like, what is my best next step? I'm going to take that. We get affected by stuff.
Yeah.
And we need an escape. We need a crutch. We need, you know, it's quite inhuman to like judge people as if when a lot has already happened to them, they should be making these healthy choices. That is so hard. You know, all of us don't do it. You have a hard day. Yeah. You know, the really sort of basic thing is you have a hard day, you might eat more junk food. Yeah. Like, imagine that times 100, times 1,000 is going to lead to unhealthy choices.
Of course.
Potentially, you know, not everybody, but potentially,
It's been scientifically proven as well that people underperform when they're in stress mode.
Of course, yeah.
Now, you know, people in living on the street, homeless people are in a constant 24-hour stress mode. You're not going to make choices. You know, I know from experience that the only way to be sober is be 100% sober. There's no playing around.
Yeah, what can you do?
Abstinence is everything if you suffer from what we suffer from. However, you know, it'll be like, well, I'm going to put the drugs down, but I've got to have a drink to warm myself up, or I'll, you know, take my head away. Yeah. But once you're under that influence, then someone comes along with a little bit of crack or something, and they're going to go, oh yeah, far away, because it's that thing. You know, you get this where sometimes someone explained to me really well about it once for that situation when you see these programs of people on a very low income, but they've got the great big tellies, you know, but it was explained to me that because they're in a constant state of stress, they're not going to think long term on things. It is the short term solution. It's like, well, let's make
that self-soothing.
Let's get the telly for the kids and that, even though it's not the best decision. So you can't really judge. We're a judging species.
But it's also like, we do, of course. And like, it's fair enough, I think, to look at something and wonder why. That's interest. And actually, I think that can be good. But as long as you approach it also with empathy and with knowledge, like that is the most important thing. Like back to Suella Braverman's comments, just look at all the research on homelessness and the leading causes, lifestyle choices and up there. So as long as you want, if you have a gut instinct about something, go look into it. If it's an important thing or if it's about judging someone else, have a chat with them, look into it in research or whatever. It's probably not the best idea to just look at something and make a snap decision and go around spreading that.
Yeah, I've learned so much over these 10 years. My as a human being, I'm so different now than I was 10 years ago. And purely, not, it's just purely by being amongst it, you know.
Yeah.
I was very shocked at early. I had so many. I thought I was such a lovely bloke, but I had so many.
I'm sure you were. I'm sure you were.
No, but I had so many preconceived ideas, and so many, you know, and you can't get into this world without realising it's so different. You know, it's just people with bad luck, good people with bad conditions.
Well, but it also, don't you think, like, I reflect the other way as well, because I've actually learned a lot about resilience, about still being, you know, about sticking to your values, even in a tough situation, about manners. You know, I have learned so much from the guests who we support as well, because especially, for example, going to the drop-in around the back of Harrods, you know, people might bump into you in the street. They might not be polite. You might, you know, there's loads of sort of experiences you can have where you think you've experienced someone's bad manners. And those might be people who have every opportunity in life to be the best person they could be, and all the time in the world to spend on, you know, being polite and all the headspace as well, because maybe they've got lots of leisure time or whatever, and they still don't do it. Whereas our guests, who might sleep outside night after night, all of the stress that you've already described that they might be experiencing, they come in and say, hello, how are you?
Yeah.
Haven't seen you for a week. How have you been? You know, thank you, please, and thank you for that cup of tea. Would it be okay if I had a drop more milk in there? Yeah. It's like, you know, what a lesson to learn, that whatever situation you're in, please and thank you can't hurt you, you know. And there's more to it than that. But even the little things, I'm just sometimes, I remind myself when I'm like pushing onto the tube with a bit of a get out my way attitude, I'm like, come on, be a bit of a nicer person. Life's too short.
I've often got F off written right across my forehead when I'm...
I have, like, of course, because I get stressed as well. And sometimes, like, I was saying to my friend the other day, sometimes I'm in Sainsbury's and I'm like, oh, I'm terribly sorry. Could I just get past you to this? And I'm actually thinking, like, get away. Like, I'm so, like, enraged with people. So, you know, it's not like I've learnt the lesson. I'm perfect now. But, there's a lot to be understood and empathetic about, but there's a lot to learn as well, for sure. You know?
I know one thing that I always, particularly at Restart Lives and many of the other ones I go to, often I don't want to go. Because often I've been busy all day and then I've got to then get this. It's a bit of a nightmare journey on the tubes for that one.
Isn't it? Especially when, like, Winter Wonderland's on in the winter. It's like, oh, no thanks.
And then, you know, and I get there, and then I sort of light up as a start of the birth, and it's so busy, and everyone's.
I know what you mean.
So, and I come out of there, and generally I'm tired, but I'm happy.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, and for 2 hours I forget all of my stuff, and I'm just concentrating on my guests, and you know, it's the most selfish thing I do. Because
I think I feel the same as well. Like, I used to think, oh my gosh, it's on a Friday night. It's every Friday night. What am I going to do? I'm going to miss going to the pub, or I'm going to miss going around to my friend's house, or going to this party or that. I don't miss it at all. No offense to my friends. You know, it is a community, and it's something, it feels enjoyable to do. Even, you know, it's not a barrel of laughs every time, but it feels worthwhile. It feels good, and the human connection there is very real, which it isn't always in normal life, is it?
Well, to be honest, I don't think we can finish on a better thing. Is that we really, you know, I think it's been a good advert for coming and helping us, you know, because we need volunteers. You need volunteers.
We do. We'd love it. We always love to meet new people. Yeah.
I think we've summed up really what a great thing it is to do, you know, and the wonderful people you meet. I mean, I just love it at that place, you know.
We love having you as well. We wouldn't be Restart really without you guys coming in there every 6 weeks doing what you do. It's so part of us as well now.
We so enjoy it. But, you know, so what's the future now? What's your, I mean, What's your, just before we wrap up, what's your sort of plans for the next 3 to 5 years? What would you like?
Well, this year we're getting into a little bit into that researching and influencing space. We've got a general election coming up, and we want our knowledge to count in that. So I won't go into it too much, but we're launching a new program around that to help get guests engaged in politics as well, give them the confidence, the skills to advocate a little bit for themselves and speak up, and also, share what we know with government. So we've got a big new program around that. Lots more online resources, because we want other services to benefit from what we do. And otherwise, we're going to be keeping up the casework numbers, hoping to do more than 30 a quarter, take on new cases more than 30 a quarter again. We'd love to, we served over 14,000 meals last year. We want to do it again. We want to do more. So more of the same, but with a little bit of that focus on actually changing policy, hopefully, because we can put on sticking plasters and do our very best, but there is some structural change that's needed as well.
I can't wait to hear more about it.
We'll tell you.
Thank you so much for sparing me the time at your busy schedule.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
We'll put all the links on. People will see all the links to Restart Lives and stuff like that.
Amazing.
But
thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. You take care, Stu. See you very soon. You take care. Bye.